Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
Hey guys, welcome back to Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath, and today we're diving into a question I see pop up at least once a month in physician finance groups. Can I afford this house that I love? This question is super important, especially for physicians who are juggling significant student loan debt, a high income, and the temptation to stretch for that dream home. But overspending on housing is one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to achieving financial freedom. In fact, in our Frugal Physician community, we talk a lot about the big three expenses. That's housing, transportation, and food, and how crucial it is not to overspend on these three categories. So, why do housing costs matter? Well, housing is a huge fixed expense. Once you buy a home, you're often locked into it for the long haul. And let's be real, moving is both emotionally and physically exhausting. As physicians who have access to those tempting no down payment, no PMI physician loans and jumbo loans, which can make it very easy to borrow way more money than we should, we have to be really careful. We could easily end up house poor, where all your income is going to your home and you're left with very little wiggle room for anything else, including retirement savings and emergency funds and vacations. So, how do we avoid this? How do we figure out how much house we can realistically afford without feeling financially strapped? Let's dive into a case study. I'm going to mask the name here. It's going to be the Smith family. So let's look at the Smith family's financial situation. Dr. Smith is a 40-year-old physician, and his spouse doesn't work outside the home. Together, they earn $300,000 annually, and they live in New York with their two children. Like many of us, Dr. Smith has a large amount of student loan debt, $350,000 to be exact, and they're paying that off on a standard 10-year repayment plan. They found their dream home. It's beautiful in a great school district, and it costs $800,000. They've saved up enough for a 20% down payment. That's $160,000. And the current interest rate is 7% on a 30-year fixed mortgage. The property taxes are $10,000 a year, and home insurance will cost them $2,800 annually. Sounds like the American dream, right? But before they jump in, they want to know if they can actually afford this house without compromising their future. So there are two key ratios you need to know when you're looking at how much house you can buy. There are two key financial ratios that lenders use to determine how much home you can afford. The first one is housing ratio 1. This measures your housing costs in relation to your gross income. The second one is HR2, or debt to income ratio. This takes into account not only your housing costs, but also all your other monthly debts, like student loans and car payments. Let's break these down for the Smith family's numbers. So housing ratio 1, the general rule is that your housing costs, which include your mortgage principal, interest, property taxes, and insurance, should not exceed 28% of your gross monthly income. So let's calculate Smith family's HR1. Their gross monthly income is $300,000 divided by 12, which gives us $25,000 per month. Their estimated monthly mortgage payment would be about $4,258 of principal and interest, adding property taxes of $833 per month and home insurance of $233 a month. Their total monthly housing cost, or PITI, is $5,325. So their HR1 is $5,325 over $25,000, which is their gross income, or 21%. So since 21% is less than 28%, this looks pretty good, right? By this metric, they're in the clear. Now let's look at the debt to income ratio, or HR2. Because HR1 doesn't tell the full story, especially for physicians with hefty student loans. That's where the debt to income ratio, or HR2, comes in. It takes into account all of your debt payments, not just housing. This gives us a more realistic picture of whether they can afford this home. Let's add up their monthly debts. Their student loan payment is $3,886. Their car payment is $750, and the second car payment is $600. Their total debt, including the housing costs of $5,325, is $10,561 per month. So their HR2 would be $10,561 over $25,000, or 42%. Whoa, now we're in trouble. The recommended amount of debt to income ratio is 36% or less, and they're at 42%. And all those payments really add up, and suddenly the dream home starts to feel like a financial strain. Let's look at what their cash flow would look like in reality, factoring in taxes and deductions. With a gross monthly income of $25,000 after federal and state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and their 401k contributions, their take home pay would actually be $16,435. Here's how their monthly budget would break down. Living expenses like groceries, utilities, and other things that they need to live would be around $5,000, childcare $2,000 a month, student loan payments $3,886, car payments $1,350, housing costs $5,325, and that all adds up to total monthly expenses of $17,561. That's right. They would actually be spending more that they bring home each month. There would be no money left for discretionary spending, and they'd be dipping into their savings every month to cover their bills. This isn't a sustainable situation. Another common rule of thumb is that your mortgage should be no more than 2 times your annual income. In this case, that would be $600,000 for this family that earns $300,000. Which is pretty close to the $660,000 the Smith family is planning to borrow after their down payment. But with their high debt payments, even that feels like a stretch. The Smith family would be much better off renting for a while longer and using their saved cash to pay off their car loans and maybe even chip away at their student loans. This way, they can reduce their monthly obligations, save up more for a down payment, and buy a home without compromising their financial security. So how much house can the Smith family afford? I'm going to point you to a nifty calculator from NerdWallet called How Much House Can I Afford? Right now, they're saving only in a 401k, maxing out the 401k at $2,300. With an income of $300,000, that savings rate is 7.5%, which would not be recommended. But if they wanted to still buy a home, according to this calculator, they could buy a home up to the purchase price of $537,000 with their current down payment. But in reality, the Smith family should buy a house even less than that so that they can boost their savings rate at least up to 10%, hopefully even more up to 25%, which is recommended for physicians. Reference our last episode with Sarah Catherine Gutierrez for that discussion. Really, if they rent for a little while longer, they can boost up their savings rate and knock down some of their debt. And then buying a home won't feel like such a burden. Buying a home that stretches their budget could put them on a path to financial strain, where they aren't saving enough for retirement and they're living paycheck to paycheck. If you're in a similar situation, take a hard look at your HR1 and HR2 ratios and consider the impact of your other debts on your financial freedom. Often, lenders will not take into account your student loan payment when they say you qualify for a loan, and that really impacts your HR2, obviously. So I would run the numbers myself and make sure that all your debt payments are less than 36% of your gross pay monthly. Buying a house should be a step towards financial stability, not a burden that drags you down. Thank you for joining me today on Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. I'm Dr. Disha Spath, reminding you to spend wisely, save aggressively, and live intentionally. For more detailed information and useful links, if you're thinking about buying a home, go to www.thefrugalphysician.com, and there will be a blog post with a similar title to this, which has some links at the bottom with some calculators you can use to really map out your financial situation. Until next time, stay frugal and stay financially free. Thank you for what you do.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.